Good evening. MA Philosophy, MAPY, MPS 001, MPY 001, Block number 2, Unit number 4, Jainism. Objectives. The main objective of this unit is to introduce students to the Jain philosophical system in general. This chapter gives a small historical background of the school of Jainism with its development and different sects. It discusses the general characteristics, feature of Jainism and also examines its epistemology, metaphysics and ethics. Key notions like Syatvad, Saptabhangine, and Anekantvad are also analyzed in detail. Introduction. The Jainas strongly believe in the teaching of the 24 Tirthankaras. Rishabdeva was the first Tirthankara. The last teacher of the Tirthankara was the Vardhaman, who was given the title Mahavira, meaning the great hero. He is believed to have lived in the 6th century BC. During the time of Buddha, Vardhaman was preceded by Parshvanath, who lived in the 9th century BC. The remaining 22 teachers of the Tirthankaras are believed to have belonged to a much earlier period. The word Jaina came from the root word Jaina, which etymologically means a conqueror. It is the common name given to all the 24 all the 24 Tirthankaras, since they all had conquered passions and thereby attained liberation. The Jainas did not believe in God. They are liberated souls who were once upon a time in bondage, but later, through their own efforts, became free, perfect, omniscient, omnipotent, and blissful. In due course of time, then the followers of Jainism got divided into two well-known sects, namely Shwetambaras and Digambaras. Their basic distinction lies in the minor detail of faith and practice. While the Shwetambaras are most accommodative and down to earth, the Digambaras are most strict and orthodox. The Digambaras hold that the followers of their sect should renounce all attachments, possessions, and even clothes for that matter. On the other hand, the Shwetambaras insist that their followers should wear only white clothes. The philosophical outlook of Jainism is based on a common sense type of realism and pluralism. For them, the objects in this world are many in number and are also real. The world consists of two kinds of substances, namely Jeev and Ajeev. All living beings have a soul, Jeev. They give extreme importance to the concept of Ahimsa, Syatvad, and Anekantvad. It is epistemology of Jainism. Consciousness is the inseparable essence of every soul. It is like the sun's light, capable of manifesting itself and also every other thing, unless it is obstructive. The reason is that omniscience is a natural property of the soul. In an obstructed state, the soul is in a position to know things, but when it is imprisoned in the body, its nature of omniscience is obstructed. In other words, it can know things only through the apparatus of the senses. The obstacles are created by the different karmas of the soul. These karmas obstruct the natural consciousness of the soul in different degrees, and that determines the type of knowledge that the soul can get. The Jainas admit to a twofold classification of knowledge, namely mediate and immediate knowledge. Under mediate knowledge, they categorize inference and other such knowledge which are derived from the medium of some other knowledge. On the other hand, immediate knowledge refers to perception. Perceptual knowledge is said to be immediate because we get knowledge of both external and internal objects through the senses and mind. In some cases, the soul is also in a position to apprehend. In other words, immediate knowledge is direct and mediate knowledge is indirect. Under immediate knowledge, we have again two kinds, namely ordinary immediate knowledge, extraordinary immediate knowledge. Ordinary immediate knowledge is that type of knowledge which the soul get when bound by the karma obstacle. Under this type of knowledge, we can classify Mati Gyan and Shruta Gyan. Mati Gyan includes any kind of knowledge obtained through the senses and mind. It even includes memory, recognition, etc. On the one hand, Sutta Gyan involves knowledge derived from an authoritative person or text. One may argue that listening to a person or reading a text is also a part of perceptual knowledge. Even Sruta Gyan can be brought under Mati Gyan, but the Jainas reply that Sutta Gyan is different from Mati Gyan because it involves the text of an authoritative persons. That is why it needs special mention. Immediate knowledge is also classified as absolute or paramarthika, no, immediate knowledge or extraordinary immediate knowledge. This knowledge is possible after the soul is purged of the impurities, namely the karma obstacle. In such a state, the soul's consciousness becomes immediately related to objects without the medium of the senses. In the case of ordinary immediate knowledge, as the soul is caged in the body, and as a result, it can be related to objects and thereby know them only through the senses. In that stage, the soul's knowledge is not only obtained through the sense organs but is also guided by the karma obstacle. On the other hand, the soul is said to obtain extraordinary knowledge directly. We can explain this with an example. When a person is standing inside a room, he can know the outside world only through the openings in that room, such as windows and doorways. Once the four walls that surrounded him are removed, he can know much more about the world than what he knew earlier. In other words, man is able to see everything around him provided he is free. Similarly, soul's consciousness is capable of knowing everything directly, but when it is inside the body, it is limited. It is not in a position to exercise its full power. When one's karma obstacle are removed, he is in the path towards extraordinary knowledge, which is of course is immediate par excellence. The Jainas talk about this in stages because this immediate extraordinary knowledge is not to be got overnight. It needs a gradual destruction of the karma obstacle. The Jainas mention three such stages as नंबर वन अवधि, नंबर दो मनः पर्याय, नंबर तीन केवल ज्ञान. After the partial destruction of karmas, one acquires the power of knowing objects which are too far away and obscure for the normal sense organs. This stage is stages of extraordinary knowledge is avadhi. The second stage is manah paryay, wherein one has direct access to other mind. This can happen only after that person becomes hatred and jealousy. In other words, it is the first stage we are able to note some distant gross objects with their form. In the second stage, we are able to know on probe deeper into subtle level. Finally, when all karmas are destroyed completely, then absolute knowledge and or omniscience arises. The stage is Kevala Janma. Only the liberated souls possess this kind of extraordinary knowledge. The Jainas accept three pramanas or source of knowledge, mainly perception, inference, and testimony. Perceptual knowledge is direct which involves the sense organs, and therefore acceptance of perception as an independent source of knowledge need not be elaborated, but definitely we must examine the refutation of Charvaka's position by the Jainas regarding inference and testimony. The Jainas ask whether perception is a valid source of knowledge. If he Infinitely, according to Charvakas, perception is a valid source of knowledge because it is uncontradicted and at the same time not misleading. Now, the Jainas point out that the reason for the validity of perception itself shows that the Charvaka resorts to inferential knowledge. Furthermore, even perceptual knowledge can at times be contradicted and misleading, as in the case of the perception of a mirage. So the Jainas point out that if perception can be contradicted and misleading but still held as a source of knowledge, why not inference and testimony be regarded as independent source of knowledge? Therefore, according to Jainism, the only reasonable conclusion that we can draw is that any source of knowledge, be it perception, inference, and or testimony, should be regarded as valid in so far as it yields knowledge that does not prove misleading. does not prove misleading. Therefore, the criterion of validity should be the harmony of knowledge with the practical consequences to which that knowledge leads. The Jaina theory of judgment, or Syatvad, in the conception of reality as extremely uh, indeterminate, which is the basis of Syatvad. According to this theory, every judgment is only partial or relative. The term Syat is derived from the Sanskrit root as which means to be. The present tense from this verb as it asti, which can be translated as is. The potential mode of this verb is Syat, which means maybe. The Jainas use this theory to signify that the universe can be looked at from many points of view, and that each view yield a different conclusion. In other words, they believe that there can be a variety of doctrines depending upon the points of view. This is known as anekantavad. This doctrine indicates an extreme causation and signifies an anxiety to avoid absolute affirmation and absolute negation. Here one must see the condition under which this doctrine was passed in order to understand its significance. There were two important extremes views concerning reality at the point of time, namely the Upanishadic view, and at another point, the Buddhistic view. The Upanishadic view of reality upholds the concept of being. On the contrary, the Buddhists deny such a being. According to Jainism, both these theories are only partially true. So the Jainas consider reality to be so complex that every one of these theories is true as far as it goes, but none is absolutely true. So the Jainas make out of make out so the Jainas make out a series of partially true statements without committing to any of these exclusively. This series is explained in 7 steps or sevenfold formula called Saptabhangi Naya. Naya means partial knowledge about some object, while Bhangi means different, or Sapta Seven. Judgment based on any partial knowledge is called Nyaya. Nay, when we consider every judgment to be unconditionally true, then it leads on to quarrel. In this way, the various schools of philosophy have come to quarrel with each other, since they believe that their judgment of reality is final. When they realize that their knowledge is partial, the conflict is no longer there. In view of this fact, the Jainas insist that every judgment should be qualified by some words like somehow or maybe, so that the limitation of every judgment as also the possibility of other judgments is recognized. Thus, Syadbad is the theory which holds that every judgment is only partially true. Thus, we have the judgment the elephant is like a pillar is changed into maybe, or somehow the elephant is like a pillar. On the basis of this theory, the Jainas classify 7 kinds of judgments through logic recognizes only two, namely affirmative and negative. The 7 type of judgments are as follows: Syat Asti, somehow S is P, A jar is red. Number B, Syat Nasti, somehow S may not be P, A jar may not be red. Syat Avyaktam, somehow S may be indescribable. The redness of jar cannot be described adequately. Number D, Syat Asticha Nasticha, somehow S may be or may not be P. This argument does not hold that S is both P and not P, because the same S is P from one angle and not P from another angle. This is why this judgment is accepted by the Jainas. Number E, Syat Asticha Avyaktam Cha, somehow S is P and is indescribable. Number F, Syat Nasti Cha Avyaktam Cha, somehow S is not P and is indescribable. Number G, Syat Asticha Nasticha Avyaktam Cha, somehow S is P, not P, and indescribable. These 7 steps are from a part of which is what is known as Saptabhangi Naya, or the sevenfold judgments. According to this theory, every judgment is only partial or relative. The Jaina metaphysics, or the theory of substance. Every substance has got innumerable characters, of which some are positive and other are negative. As in common conservation, so also in philosophy, a distinction is made between the characters and that which possesses these characters. be called that which possesses characters as substance or dravya. The world consists of different substances. Each of these substances have qualities which are essential along with qualities that are accidental. The essential quality is called guna. The accidental quality is called paryay. The essential qualities are those that remain in the substance as long as the substance exists. In other words, they are inseparable from the substance. On the one hand, the accidental qualities are those which come and go. Insofar as the essential characters of the ultimate substance are abiding, the world is permanent. Insofar as the accidental qualities undergo modifications, the substance also changes. According to Jainas, both change and permanence are real. When we apply Syatvad, the seeming uh, con- contradiction between change and permanence vanishes. The Jainas reject both Kshanikvad, theory of momentariness of Buddhist, and reject Nityavad, theory of permanence of the Vedantins. Substance can be classified as both extended and not extended. Among substances, time alone is devoid of extension. All other substances are considered to be extended. Extended substances are innumerable and are referred to by the general name astika, because every substance exists like a body. Kaya means that which possesses extension. The word astika means anything that occupies space or has some per, per, pervasiveness. Such objects which are extended are classified by the Jainas as ultimate jeev and inanimate ajeev. We may call them as the living being or the non-living matter. The Jainas consider soul or jeev as the extended substance. This is not without reason. Normally, we understand soul as being opposed to body. Since body is extended, we conclude that its opposite, namely the soul, is non-extended. But according to Jainism, souls also expand and contract according to the dimensions of the body which they occupy. It is only in this sense that the Jainas regard soul to be extended. Even among such souls, the Jainas differentiate between the emancipated and fettered souls. Once the soul are emancipated or liberated, none of the impurities attached to them. This is the highest state of jiva. But the jiva has to transcend various levels before reaching this state. So the Jainas attribute such states to the soul in bondage. Fettered soul are either moving or immobile. Among the non-moving fettered souls, the Jainas consider those living in bodies made of earth, water, fire, air, and plants. All such non-moving substances sthavar have one sense, namely that of touch. On the contrary, moving substance thrust are two sense, namely bombs, three sense like ants, four sense like bees, and five sense like men. This distinction among moving substances is based on the senses that are active. For instance, in the case of worms, the sense of touch or and taste alone are at work. In the case of ants, the senses of touch, taste, and smell. This is why ants have been classified under three sensed, and similarly, bees are four sensed because they also have sight. The immobile living substances have the most imperfect kind of bodies, which compared to the mobile living substance, the Jainas regard even the four elements as being animated by souls. That is, the particles of earth etc have soul in the sense that there is consciousness present in them, although this consciousness is not as differentiate as in the case of a higher being. We may call such substances as elementary. They just live and die. Their functions are not clearly demarcated or well defined. These elementary lives are either gross or subtle. Gross objects are distinguished from subtle on the basis of their visibility and knowability. On the contrary, the mobile living substances are bodies of different degrees of perfection. Soul or jiva. Generally, jiva is a conscious substance. It is also extendable in space because souls expand and contract according to the dimensions of the body. According to the Jainas, the essence of soul is consciousness, or in other words, consciousness is present in the soul everywhere. The Jainas arrange the soul theoretically in a continuous series according to the degree of consciousness. At the highest end of scale would be the perfect soul that has overcome all karmas and attained omniscience, and at the lowest end would be the most imperfect soul, such as the single sensed soul. In this state, consciousness is in the dormant form due to the inference of karma obstacle. The soul knows, performs, enjoys, suffer, and illumines itself and other objects like a light. It has no form of itself, but it takes the form of the body. It is in this sense that the soul is said to occupy space in its pure states. The soul has indefinite bliss and indefinite power, except a few souls or other souls are in bondage because of karma or matter which has been accumulated in the past. The Jainas view that consciousness or soul has extension, and the soul primarily is a living being which has consciousness in every part of the living body. Consciousness is the essential quality of the soul. Proof for the existence of soul. Number one, the existence of the soul is directly perceived by experiences such as I feel, pleasure, pain, etc. When a quality is perceived, we say that along with it, a substance is also perceived. Number two, we can also prove the existence of the soul from inference. If we take a body as an instrument, there must be someone to control it, and that which controls the body is the soul. Number three, the body also performs many actions that are guided. This enables us to infer the existence of soul as the guiding factor in inanimate substance or ajeeb. Among the extended substance we have seen jiva and its various facts. Now let us take a look into another category of extendable substance, namely the inanimate substance or ajeeb. Even these substances occupy space and is referred to as astika. The Jainas classify this kind of substance into four, namely Pud, Pudgalastika, Astikae, Pudgalastikaya, Akasastikaya, Dharmastikaya, Adharmastikaya. Pudgalastikaya. The word Pudgal means matter, and since it occupies space, it is Astika. Etymologically, it means that which is liable to integration and disintegration. Material substance combined together to form a larger wholes and can also break up into smaller and smaller parts. The smallest part of matter which cannot be further divided is called an atom, Anu. Pudgala is made up of such atoms. The Jainas call atoms and combination of atoms by this single term Pudgala. All material substances are produced by the combination of atoms. Our bodies and objects of nature are such compounds of material atoms. So even they are called as Pudgala. Even mind, speech, and breath are products of matter. The atoms are eternal and possesses qualities like touch, taste, smell, and color. Therefore, we find these qualities in the compounds of atoms. Here, according to Jainas, sound is not an original entity. It is an accidental modification of matter. Dharmastikaya and Adharmastikaya. The term dharma and adharma should not mislead us into thinking about merits and demerits. Instead, these two terms are used to denote two kind of inanimate substances which are known and proved inferentially. They stand for mobility and immobility. The Jainas argue that the movement of a fish in the water, though initiated by the fish, would not be possible without the medium of water. Here, water is a necessary condition. Similarly, the movement of any soul or material thing needs a necessary condition without which movement would not be possible. Such a condition is dharma. Nevertheless, dharma cannot cause movement in a non-moving object. It only favors the movement of objects in a motion. On the one hand, adharma is the substance that helps in the immobility of objects or the restful state of objects, just as the shade of a tree helps the traveler to take rest. However, adharma cannot arrest the movement of any moving object. These two are pervasive in nature. In other words, these two are pervasive condition for movement and the state of rest respectively. Water cannot compel a fish to move, nor can the shade compel a person to take rest. Similarly, dharma and adharma do not compel movement and immobility actively, but helps objects to move or not to move passively. This necessity for admitting these two categories seems probably to have been felt by the Jainas on account of their notion that the inner activity of jiva or the atoms require for its exterior realization the help of some other entity. Moreover, since the jivas were regarded as having inherent activity, they would be found to be moving even at the time of liberation, which is undesirable. Aste Akastikaya or space. The function of Akash is to afford room for the existence of all extended substance. It is based on the category that the Jainas classify substance as astika, soul, matter, dharma, and adharma exist in space. The existence of space is inferred and not perceived because substances which are extended can have extension only in space, and that space is called Akash. Here, Akash is necessary condition. Likewise, if we say that substances are those that pervades, then there must be something that is pervaded. That which pervades is called substance, while that which is pervaded is space. Jainas distinguish two kind of space, namely loka lokasha and alokas. Lokas stands for space containing the word, and alokas stands for empty space that exists beyond lokas, time or kala. It is the only non-extendable substance according to the Jainas. Time makes possible continuity modifications, etc. Like space, time is also inferred. It is inferred as the condition without which we cannot speak about continued existence of things or modifications of things. For instance, mango became ripe implies that mango was in an unripe state at the point of time which became ripe at the later time. But time, according to Jainas, is non-extendable, anastikaya, because time is an individual substance. It cannot be characterized by space. It is irreversible. The Jainas distinguish between real time, paramarthika, kal, and empirical time, vyavaharika kal. Continuity or duration is the measure of real time. But on the other hand, changes of all kind characterize empirical time. According to the Jainas, empirical time is conventional, divided into hours, minutes, and seconds. It is limited by the beginning and the end. Real time, on the other hand, is eternal and formless. Jaina ethics. This is the most important aspect of Jaina philosophy. For them, metaphysics or epistemology is useful only in so far as it helps men to right conduct. What is meant by right conduct? According to the Jainas, right conduct enables man to liberate himself from bondage. Bondage in Indian philosophy means the liability of the individual to birth and all consequent sufferings. But the suffering individual is a conscious substance, jiva, to possess in infinite perception, infinite knowledge, infinite power, and infinite bliss. Despite these perceptions, the soul suffers in birth because of karma obstacle. If the soul has to regain its inherent qualities, then these obstacles must be removed. This situation is like that of the sun's light, which become brighter and brighter as soon as the clouds are cleared. In order to know how these obstacles can be cleared, let us analyze what these obstacles are in reality. The Jainas assert that the obstacles are constituted by matter particles, which in fact the soul and overpower its natural qualities. In other words, we can say that body, which is made up of matter particles, Pudgala, is responsible for limiting the soul. Each body is made up of a particular combination of matter particles which depend on the soul's passion. The karma, or the sum of the past life of the soul, generates a craving which attracts particular Pudgala to the soul. The soul becomes the efficient cause and Pudgala become the material cause. It is our past karmas that determine the family in which we are born, as well as the nature of our body, such as its color, shape, longevity, the number, and nature of sense organs, etc. For instance, Gotra karma determines the family into which the soul is to be born, and Ayush karma determines the length of life. Liberation, bondage, we have seen is the association of soul with matter, and liberation therefore should be the complete disassociation of the two. This can be achieved by stopping the influx of new matter into the soul, as well as by complete elimination of the old matter with which the soul has become already mingled. Passions of the soul lead to association. What is the cause of this passion? Passions spring from our ignorance about the real nature of our soul. It is knowledge that alone can remove ignorance. Therefore, the Jainas stress the need for right knowledge of reality, samyak gyan. Right knowledge is the detailed cognition of the real nature of ego and non-ego, which is free from doubt, error, uncertainty, etc. It can be obtained only by studying carefully the teachings of the omniscient Tirthankaras or teachers who have already obtained liberation and therefore are fit to lead others out of bondage. When do we accept a knowledge? Only when we have a preliminary belief in that. Then the preliminary faith should be supported by right knowledge. Again, for having right faith based on general acquaintance, Samyak Darshana in support of right knowledge. Right faith does not imply that one must blindly follow the Tirthankaras, but one must have the right attitude of respect towards truth. Further, by studying the teachings of the Tirthankaras, one can strengthen his belief, but these two are rendered useless unless they are followed by rigorous practice. The right conduct is the third indispensable Samyak Charitra condition of liberation. It is this that enables one to stop the influx of new karmas and also to eradicate old ones. It consists in the control of passions, senses, thought, speech, etc. Right conduct is therefore described as refraining from what is harmful and doing what is good. The Jaina perception for right conduct, one must follow the five great vows, namely the Pancha Mahavrata, for the perfection of right conduct. They are Ahimsa, Satyam, Asteya, Brahmacharya, and Aparigraha. Ahimsa, it denotes abstinence from all injuries to life, either trasha or isthavara. That is why a Jain Muni uh, breathes through a piece of cloth in order not to inhale or destroy any life in the air. It must be followed in thought, word, and deed. This is why they practice extreme caution in speaking, walking, or even in answering calls of nature, so as to avoid injury to any life whatsoever. Satyam, it is abstinence from falsehood. It is speaking what is true, good, and pleasant. Otherwise, truthfulness is of no use. To maintain this vow, one must conquer greed, fear, and anger. Asteyam. It refers from abstinence from stealing. Human life requires some form of wealth for their survival. Depriving another man of his wealth to morally wrong by stealing his belonging, it deprive him of an essential condition of life. Brahmacharyam. This pertains to abstinence from sensual and causal pleasure. One must refrain himself from karma of any form altogether in the speech, talk, or action. Aparigraha. This means abstinence from all kind of attachment. It lies in giving up attachment for the objects of five senses. Right faith, knowledge, and conduct are inseparably bound up with one another, and the progress and degradation of the one affect the other two. The person must harmoniously develop all these uh, three together. Only when the soul overcomes passion and karmas, both old and new, it becomes completely free from bondage to all form of matter and reaches its inherent potentiality. It is finally here that the soul attains the fourfold path of perfection. Ananta Kaustya, as follows: Ananta Gyan, infinite knowledge; Ananta Darshana, infinite faith; Ananta Virya, infinite power; Ananta Shuka, infinite bliss. These three are right knowledge, right faith, and right conduct are known as these three Ratnas, or the three gems of Jainism. Let us sum up. In this unit, we have tried to gain a detailed historical account of Jainism and an analysis into the various concepts of the philosophy of the Jainism. We have discussed at first the Jain etymology. We have also analyzed key concepts like Sayatvad, Anekantvad, Saptabhangi ne under the different kinds of judgment, and finally have evaluated the concept and importance of Ahimsa along with the role of Panch Mahavrata in attaining liberation. Thank you.